Welcome to In Her Voice. My name is Kelly Covert, and I am passionate about helping women live authentically by listening to their inner voice. Get ready to be inspired by women of all walks of life that have set aside their should-bes and not good enoughs and are standing in their true voice, the voice of wisdom that each and every one of us has inside. Hey, you guys, this is Kelly Covert, and you're listening to In Her Voice. I'm so glad that you decided to press play today. When you invite me into your ears, I feel so grateful to just be able to share space with you. So thank you. Today, I have an awesome guest. You're going to love her. Her name is Mili Metz, and we are talking about procrastination. And I have to be 100% honest. This is totally selfish on my part. And I'm guessing I'm not the only one who deals with procrastination. But when she said that she'd be willing to talk about that, I jumped on it because I feel like there's more to learn here. So I'm really excited to bring you this interview. Before we get into the interview, I want to let you know that I have something really special happening in May, something I've never done before. And that is I'm going to be running a live version of my course on overcoming perfectionism. So I always have it online, readily accessible at any time for you guys to do on your own. But I've decided it would be really fun to go through it live, and I'm going to take 3 weeks to do it. It's going to be really great. We're going to come together in a special group and go through the process together of journaling and doing deep centered exercises around releasing our need to be perfect, about understanding why we will never be perfect and understanding why that is perfect. So I cannot wait to bring this to you. We're going to be starting that in May 14th, actually, but you can go ahead and sign up now. The link to learn more about that and to check it out is kellycovert.com/perfectionism. And I just want to pause here and say, if this is something that you struggle with, if you are really ready to live your life with joy, to be present, to have delights in your life, to not have this underlying anxiety and worry all of the time in your life, this is for you. I want you to be able to walk away with a relief, with being able to say, yeah, it's okay. It's okay that I'm not perfect. It's okay. I'm okay. I matter and I am worthy. That's what overcoming perfectionism is all about. And I can't wait to do that with you guys. So once again, the link for that is kellycovert.com/perfectionism. And you can click the live link right in your podcast app, whatever you're listening to from your phone or tablet, and that will take you right to the spot. So let me tell you a little bit about my guest today, Mili Metz. Mili was born and raised in Mumbai, India. She migrated to the US in middle school and continued her education on the East Coast. She holds a dual BA in psychological and brain sciences and public health, social sciences from the Johns Hopkins University, a MA from Teachers College, Columbia University, and her doctoral work in counseling psychology is in progress at Georgia State University. She's like a super smarty pants, basically, is what I'm trying to say with all of that. Currently, she is the psychology chair at a small liberal arts university in San Marcos, California, owner of Open Hearts, Open Minds, a leadership consulting practice focused on helping millennial women thrive. She's a featured columnist at Ask Mili on Girls Side Chats and an advisor at Swell Collective, a nonprofit organization dedicated to collaborative leadership and conscious communication. She is married to an active duty U.S. Marine with whom she shares a heart for service, love of learning, and commitment to authentic living. And they have 2 kittens and a senior dog. So, you know, she's good people. I am really excited about this interview. I have to tell you, we already recorded it. I had like this huge breakthrough. So I won't tell you about it. You can go listen to it and then I'll see you on the other side. Mili Metz, I'm so excited to welcome you to In Her Voice. Thank you so much for being here today.
Kelly, thank you for the invitation and the opportunity. I'm so excited to be here with you.
Well, so we've been talking offline a little bit about what we're going to dig into today. And all of my listeners know I consider myself to be a recovering perfectionist. And as someone who is in active recovery, some things still come up and bite me in the butt. And one of those things is procrastination. And I know that I am not alone. And so you've graciously offered to talk about procrastination and perfectionism and how they are connected in more ways than we might think. So why don't we start with what is procrastination in your view? Like, I'm sure everyone knows, but like, since you're the expert here, what do you think procrastination is?
So I definitely agree with Julian Gordon's definition, and he presents procrastination as the other side of the perfectionism coin. So for me, perfectionism speaks to overextending deadlines, pushing back, sort of restricting the amount of time you will have to work on something, as opposed to perfectionism, which on the other side of the coin is giving yourself more than enough time and adding to sort of the deadline, right? We all set up artificial deadlines in addition to actual ones in order to motivate our performance, in order to encourage our involvement, whatever the case may be. So to me, these two constructs go very much hand in hand, where with procrastination, we're working with this idea that I need to feel a burning urgency before I can get anything accomplished, versus perfectionism, where you constantly feel a burning anxiety, even if nothing has to be accomplished right away.
Oh, isn't that interesting? Yeah, I've always considered myself to be a person who works well under pressure, which I think is another way of saying I like to procrastinate.
Absolutely. I don't think you're alone. I think this is a very commonly experienced phenomenon, right?
Yeah. So what is your personal experience in this realm?
I would say the most kind of evidence space this shows up for me is with anything related to school. So I spent more years than one should perhaps in higher education. I got my undergraduate, I got a master's degree, I went on to my PhD, I got really stuck in the dissertation phase. So that is where this always showed up for me. Now I am actively an educator. I'm the chair of a small psych department here in San Marcos, California. I still struggle with it. Every time I'm confronted with having to create a syllabus or set up a deadline or get work accomplished, where I have to sit down on my own and just churn out, whether it's data, whether it's reading, whether it's writing, any of these tasks that involve individual accomplishment, I tend to push it back and push it back and push it back some more. I think that'll be pretty familiar to people. So,
oh my gosh, yeah.
In my life, that is where procrastination rears its very ugly head, and I'm forced to make some tough decisions about whether I can bolster the internal strength to push ahead by setting maybe a fake deadline, by moving up when something's due. Same with running late, right? I think you and I likely have many a friend, maybe we are that friend, who runs just 5 minutes late, just chronically 5 minutes late.
Yeah.
So I think that's also a function of procrastination, because you don't leave yourself enough time to get everything you need to get out the door.
Yeah, I would be always late if I didn't have sort of, my thing is like, I always want to be everywhere 15 minutes early. And so if it weren't for that, I would be late very often. So I've built in sort of this system for myself to not be late, because for me, being late means not being there 15 minutes early, which is good because I'm always late from my 15 minutes early, which is great. But so let's dig into the why. Why the heck do we procrastinate? Because it puts so much stress on us. It causes all of this anxiety. It's not fun. It's not joyful. Why do we do it?
So I believe that our major motivator is a learned behavior, right? So I like that you called yourself a recovering perfectionist, because I believe that a lot of procrastinators are genuinely fighting off or trying to come to terms with their inner perfectionist. So the way in which procrastination rewards us is perfectionists are kind of a heap of anxious nerves. You're always anxious if you want things to be perfect, because you and I both know no human is truly perfect. And so none of our
Correct.
outcomes are truly perfect. And that fixation with perfection really leads to a lot of worry and anxiety that tamps into the joy we could experience if we could really just be present in the moment and enjoy ourselves. So where procrastination creeps in is a false sense of freedom, that we're allowing ourselves to be present because we're not anxious and worried and in that perfectionist mode. But we aren't really accomplishing that goal. We're just pushing it off. So the anxiety creeps in with a higher level of intensity, and it spikes to create that urgency procrastinators need to get anything done.
Oh my gosh, I feel like I just had like a breakthrough in my life.
Tell me.
Okay. So this whole concept of what you just said about this false sense of being present. Like I'm putting things off because I feel like when I do that, I'm like giving myself permission to not have the worry, to not have the anxiety. When in reality, I'm just setting myself up to have more of that just in a more concentrated period of time.
Yes, that's absolutely right.
And I've never thought of it like that. Like I'm always like, oh, because I'm not a necessarily super anxious person. Even when I'm under the gun, so to speak, because I procrastinated or because something is running late or whatever, I don't know. I just don't get stressed out in that sense. But I think that you're right that a lot of times it's me avoiding feeling that to begin with. But so the conundrum then is, how do we have neither of those? Because like, I don't want either of those. I don't want constant worry and anxiety that I'm not perfect, which by the way, I feel like I haven't had that in a really long time, but I see the underlying power of that. But also I don't want to procrastinate.
That's an excellent question that has a multi-layered response, right? So one of the key tools that I use to help with the balancing act, because that's how I think of it. I think if you are prone to perfectionism, which in my mind is often linked back to our early childhood years of being trained and taught to be motivated by achievement, right? Often perfectionism has its roots sort of in that space, if you track back into early development. So what I like to do in moving us forward, instead of getting stuck in that old space to rehash our past, is really linking into what is the actual outcome that we are seeking? What is it that we actually bare bones, down the wire, want to accomplish here? And after we set up that clear directive, then allocating structured time and staying accountable. I think that is the greatest challenge for procrastinators, is having to do the organizational piece of charting out how long will this task actually take, not how quickly can I get it done, or how perfectly can I get it done, right? So that's the fluctuation. If you're a perfectionist, it becomes, how much time do I need to do this perfectly? If you're a procrastinator, it becomes, how much time do I need to get this done? These are both very extreme reactions. These are extreme ways to go about dealing with what needs to happen.
And so instead, the question should be,
what is it that I need to get done, period? And then take yourself out of it and say, if any person needed to achieve this goal, what would be the steps they take and how much time would they need? When you take, believe it or not, when you take the I out of it, most of us are so much more gentle and compassionate and loving with other people than we ever are with ourselves.
Oh, well,
So
that's the truth. I mean,
exactly,
that is
especially
the
as
hard
women,
truth.
especially as
Mm-hmm.
women. So that's
Mm-hmm.
why I say take the I out of it. Respond instead with the perspective of how long would this take my best friend or my sister or someone that you value and love, not in a competitive way, not in a comparative way, but in a truly supportive way, and say, how long would I give that person to do this? And then
Oh,
hold yourself accountable.
I love that. I'm going to put my sister, like it would be my sister. How long would I give my sister to do this?
Exactly. Because you would be
Yeah.
so much more flexible and thoughtful and, kind to her. I'm sure of it.
Yeah. That is so, I love that. That is such a great, tangible tool
Mhm.
because I know you could ask, if you ask my husband this, he would, this question, does Kelly have a good understanding of how long things take? And he would say, absolutely not. And it's true. Like, I don't understand, or maybe I shouldn't say I don't understand. I haven't allowed myself to understand how long it takes to do certain things. I just
Mhm.
like always think, honestly, Millie, you're going to laugh at me. I just think everything should take 30 minutes. Like that's my standard.
No, Kelly,
Oh, it's going to take 30 minutes.
I love that you own that. I love that you put that out there and you spoke your truth, because you know why you do that? Because you have been programmed to be a high achiever. You know that the expectation for a person's attention span can't really be more than 30 minutes. That's what you feel to be the right amount of time to be expected to focus, drill down, and be in a seated, non-mobile position. That's what I'm taking away from what you're telling me. And that's
Oh, totally.
absolutely a form of conditioning, right? That's a way in
Yeah.
which we've conditioned our beliefs to be, this is how long it should take because that's how long it should take. There's nothing else. That's not an explanation. If I asked you why, you can't actually answer why it should take 30 minutes. You can only tell me that it should take 30 minutes. That's all you
Yeah.
can give me, right?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's so true. And you know what's fascinating about this? I feel like I'm giving my listeners like sort of this very inside, vulnerable view to myself because I pride myself on saying, oh, I'm a recovering perfectionist. I am a recovering high achiever. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I spent a whole year like purposefully underachieving, what I called
Mm-hmm.
underachieving. But I
Mm-hmm.
see now that just like in everything, we are on a journey of discovering deeper layers that we can work on. And I've taken this, I've let go of needing external affirmation. So needing that
That's
overachieving in
huge.
that way. And it is
Huge.
huge. But then
Yes.
like the deeper level of that is, have I let go of my own expectations of myself, of what I should be able to do? And clearly not yet. There's still work to be done there. And I think that this is so fascinating that something as seemingly simple as
Mm-hmm.
procrastination really opens a door into something so much deeper.
And Kelly, I want to build on that a little bit more to highlight something you said that's so powerful. I heard you say very clearly, you took a year to underachieve. And then you backtracked a tiny bit because you recognized that this is where we fail as high achievers, whether or not we're in recovery. It's so difficult for us to own that we have the power to define achievement. It's so powerful when we stop and we say, I am not going to define achievement by someone else's standard. Because that's the
Mm.
powerful shift. That's where we move from being seekers of approval, desirers of perfection, to truly becoming present and authentic. Because authenticity is being attuned to your true self and meeting you where you are, not where you should be, not where you could be, not where you have been, right here, right now, where you
Mm-hmm.
are.
Yeah, I love that so much. So, how do we really start to embody that notion that I can define achievement by my own standards. How do we begin to live that? I mean, and I have a lot of ideas about how I have already done that, but I really want to hear from you, because I'm guessing you've done this in your own life and that you continue to work on it. I'm guessing.
I do every day, every single day. I actually moved to California only about 18 months ago, and that was a huge transition for me. I am sort of an East Coast brat, New York City, Atlanta, Philadelphia, just up and down the coast, Baltimore. I've lived in a lot of sort of big and medium-sized cities, but always on the East Coast. And there's a certain East Coast attitude, East Coast neuroticism that I think is really well aligned with my self-identity and my presentation as a person, right? Mm-hmm. So you take that individual and you bring them to like hippy dippy Southern California, where people wake up to do yoga, sunrise salutations, and then take like a mid-afternoon break to drink like an acai berry smoothie. That's sort of like what life is like, right? Which
sounds lovely.
Right. It is lovely. It is lovely. But when you come from a perspective and an attitude of, I should be up at 7 to read the Wall Street Journal, to then move into my commute on the subway, to that, you see what I'm saying? There's a very different frenetic pace to life that I had to adjust out of. And so for me, what became critical was adopting a yoga practice, which I'm Indian American. And for the longest time, I really resented this idea that yoga would save my life, because there are so many ways in which yoga is culturally appropriated in the American context. I have a lot of thoughts on that. That's an entirely separate discussion. But I really resisted embracing yoga and leaning into a meditative practice. But coming to California, I promised myself, if at this time in my life, in this season, in this space, I wasn't going to try this, I had to have a really good reason, and I couldn't think of one. So I leaned into this yoga practice, and part of the journey here became, how do I show up and be present through my breath and through my sort of vision, through my presence, through just every facet of my physical being, right? We get so consumed with our mental space, our thoughts, our emotions. We really get caught up in our heads, as it were, and hearts, as it were, and not so much in the true physicality of being present in a space. And so for me, yoga really did that. And I tell you this sort of long-winded background to bring us to a precipice, which is 2 weeks ago in like a hot yoga class, which was, oh God, it was so hot. I was so overwhelmed by the heat. I couldn't even focus on anything else. I heard my yoga instructor say something that really sat with me, and I've continued to articulate to myself. She said, you are both a masterpiece and a work in progress. Mm. And
I love that.
That was so meaningful, right? Because redefining ourselves has to do with breaking out of the binary that we cannot be a masterpiece if we are a work in progress.
Yeah, it's about embracing the duality of those things, the juxtaposition of both and instead of either or. There is so much there that I just love talking about, flawed and strong at the same time, vulnerable and brave. Like all of those things I think are so important, because when we do start to embrace the both and, then that gives us so much freedom.
And especially as women, because our voices, our lives, our beings are just full of duality, right? Every aspect of strength for us comes from a certain amount of fragility and vulnerability and openness to experience raw, painful, powerful, joyful emotions.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, just sort of owning that one side of that can't exist without the other. And that to me is very powerful, knowing that I cannot be a masterpiece without being a work in progress, because that's what it means to be human.
100%.
And we're all experiencing that every single day. And that helps me too. Like, that gives me strength to know, like, that Mili is across the country from me. I'm also on the East Coast.
Yes.
In that struggle and the joy at the same time as I am, like, we're in it together. So, I mean, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And I think it's so interesting that for you, this realization came for you through a yoga practice that you did not want to start.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So resistant. I was so resistant to it. I can't even tell you.
Well, and I think that that's an important point to bring up, is that when you find, and I say you to all of the listeners, when you feel that resistance to something, that's giving you data. Like, that is your body or your mind telling you something really, really important, that you need to reevaluate a story that you're telling yourself about what it is that you are resistant to. For you, it was this whole, it was like a statement for you to not do yoga. Like, it was like personal and meaningful. And I think to really have the courage to change that story, to be willing to say, actually, I can embrace this in a way that's meaningful for me without taking away from my beliefs about that.
Absolutely. I mean, I can't agree with that more, right? This idea that my preconceived notions and my personal predispositions on this topic could not continue to dictate how I move through life. Because if I had let myself remain in my comfort zone, I could never experience the profound change that has come from stepping out of it. And I say that all the time to clients and to friends, to my husband, for crying out loud. I say it to everyone. Change happens outside your comfort zone. And so for me, this was a huge step outside my comfort zone. I had told myself this script: I don't do yoga. Yoga is not for Mili. And we buy into our scripts. Think of the number of times there have been these sort of tall tales we've told ourselves for whatever reason. And often the genesis of it is now unidentifiable. We've told ourselves this story for so long, we don't know where it started.
Well, oftentimes it's stories that our parents and our grandparents have told us. And, you know, those generational stories are even stronger, I think, than the ones we build ourselves. So, yeah.
The narrative, I know, it goes so far back.
Yeah. Well, and I think bringing it back around to procrastination and perfectionism, I love that you found your release, your relief also in something physical, because as high achievers, as perfectionists, we're so in our head all of the time. It's like we have to find the way to shut it down and just be, like, to stop freaking doing all of the time and just be truly present, not the kind of present that procrastination gives us, but to be truly here and now in the moment. And it sounds like that yoga gave you that gift.
Absolutely. And, you know, till I started doing breath work, which sounds so, even as I say it now, there's a part of me that's like, breath work, what kind of frou-frou idea is this, right? Because I'm a scientist at the end of the day. I'm really trained in the ways of how the mind functions without being as cognizant and focused on how somatically our bodies hold so much, whether it's our trauma, whether it's our anxiety, whether it's sort of sadness. Our emotions are also embodied experiences. And so for me, breath is really what tied that mind-body connection in a way that was incredibly releasing. It was, as you said, both a release and a relief, because being able to recognize the times that inadvertently I hold my breath through the course of a day, something as small as being mindful about keeping a steady pace to my breath, became very meaningful and pivotal in the shift towards true presence for me.
Yeah, that's good. It's so fascinating to me too that this came to you through yoga, because I feel like I have also learned a lot of lessons about who I am through yoga and about who I used to think I need to be versus who I actually am. And for me, it didn't come through the breath, it came through the stillness. So when I first started doing yoga, I would leave the class, like at the end when you lay and you meditate and you do nothing, I would leave before that. Because like I would get so antsy and my mind would be going and like then people would be making noises. They would drive me batty. I couldn't concentrate. Like I was distracted and I would just leave. I'd be like, oh, I have to be somewhere.
Yeah, my time is up. I came for the poses. I've done the poses.
Yeah. I'd be like, I want some power yoga and now I'm going to get the hell out of here.
Yeah.
And I think that it's when I started to recognize that what I most needed was just to lay still, just to lay still and to be there. And I have interviewed a lot of people who teach yoga or who practice yoga. And I remember my good friend Elsie Escobar said that sometimes your best yoga practice is to breathe for 5 minutes. Just lay still and breathe. That's yoga. And we have, like you said, we have these preconceived notions about like what is yoga or what is meditating or what is journaling, all of these practices that can get us connected with our inner voice, can get us connected to that still place. And so we don't do them because we think they have to look a certain way. But when we just let go of that, then that's our access to who we truly are.
And that's where I genuinely believe pleasure resides, right? There are so many things that are genuinely pleasurable about giving yourself the freedom to be present. And in some ways, I think that's where so much of our resistance comes from. This idea that we shouldn't have this much pleasure. There's something so wonderful and self-loving to be able to be truly present. And that feels like hedonistic in a way. I know this is like a really far out concept, but I think it's so valid. I think if we are able to take a close enough look, and as you said, sit in stillness long enough to relish it, because it's kind of delicious.
Oh, yeah. Yes, it is. And I think too, as women, like that goes so deep, right? Like that we're being selfish. If we enjoy something that much, or we're taking away from someone else's experience by having so much pleasure in something. And that, ladies, is 100% false.
It's such a lie. It's such a lie. And I have to tell you, I have found moving to California. I'm not suggesting all of you East Coasters move out here, but if you want to, come on down. Feel free, make the trip. One of the things I found is the pleasure I feel just being able to watch the sunset. Something that small is so vast. It has such a redemptive quality in rejuvenating the spirit. You know, we talk about this idea of procrastinating and perfectionism and worry and anxiety and all the links in between. But being present pushes you to say, if I'm able to complete this task in a way that I can enjoy it, why does it mean it's not a good task or that I didn't give it my best shot? Why should I not enjoy the process? We are so programmed to feel like the process is a burden that we have to endure. And if we haven't endured it, we haven't performed well enough.
Yeah. Well, and it goes back to that idea of defining what achievement means to you based on your standards, right? Because all of a sudden, maybe achievement means going out and enjoying the sunset.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Maybe achievement means laying still in the end of your yoga class. It completely turns upside down how we like even reward ourselves, right? Or how we think that we're being successful or feel fulfilled. I mean, this is like crazy to me how deep this can go if we really allow it to infiltrate the way we are, like our being.
And to metabolize it exactly as you're saying, to move past the point where we're just letting it wash over us, but to move into a space where it sinks in, where it takes up permanent residence in our psyche, in our mentality, in our attitude, because it'll bleed
I
through.
love that. I love that you said metabolize it, because like what I picture is like literally eating it up. Like letting this idea nourish you and feed your soul. I mean, what are some ways, obviously your yoga, but are there other ways that you do this for yourself on a daily basis?
So one of the major things I've also adopted, I know all my things now involve leaving the house because I am such a homebody. And some of it is also that East Coast, half the year we don't get too far from our homes, right?
Right, yeah.
Here on the West Coast, that's not so, especially down on the southern part of the West Coast, that's not the issue. So one of the things that I've challenged myself to do this year is go on a minimum 5-mile hike every week, which to me was, I know it doesn't sound that big if you're a triathlete. It's not that much of an achievement depending on where you are with your sort of physical fitness agendas. But for me, this was a major commitment to say, I'm going to take on a 5-mile hike, and it's going to be a novel hike that I haven't done before. And I'm fortunate to live in an area where I can do that, right? But to really challenge myself, to be connected with nature, to be outside, to add movement back into my life, and to witness the beauty that's really all around us. I think that's been so powerful and so enriching for me. And on a continuing to be a homebody introvert, I do an annual self-care ritual where I promise myself that I'm going to send a piece of mail for every day of the week. So on Sundays, I usually sit down and do like my correspondence where it'll be either like a pretty card or a note card that I write and send off to someone that I've thought of in the week.
Oh, I love that. I love that. It means so much to get that actual card.
It's a very old-fashioned idea, but who doesn't love to get like non-bills in the mail? Who doesn't love that?
Yeah, for sure. Well, Mili, this has been such an eye-opening and fascinating conversation to me. And I'm really excited to take on this really practical tool that you gave about asking, okay, how long would my sister need to get this done? And really applying that and giving myself grace and giving myself space and time to just be. So thank you for your wisdom and just your, you have so much joy in you too as you speak this. I just feel it. And I just want to call that out and acknowledge it. I really, really appreciate these wise words from you.
Thanks, Kelly. I am so grateful for you and all the work that you've done on yourself to allow for you to amplify all of our voices. So I'm so grateful as a listener and now a guest. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, so why don't you tell our listeners how they can connect with you online?
Absolutely. So the best way to reach me is to check out my website, www.ooh-om.com. And that's sort of my consulting practice, Open Hearts, Open Minds. I'm really committed and dedicated to improving leadership, the way that it's defined, the way that it's understood, the way that it's metabolized in women. Be it sort of entrepreneurs, be it sort of our millennial folks coming out, launching into the workplace. So that's the absolute best way to connect with me. You should be able to contact me through my site. If not, please drop me an email. I would love to stay connected and to help you on your journey, wherever in the process you are. Mili, MILI.OOH.OM@gmail. So reach out,
Fantastic.
Connect. You're not alone.
Yeah, and I will put the links to all of those in the show notes as well as your podcast app. So if you're listening on your phone or your tablet, you can go right there and click the links. So go do that and connect with Mili and take her up on all of the wonderful things that she's offering. So one last question. You're welcome.
Yes.
One last question that I ask all my guests, and that is, in your life right now, as you connect with your inner voice, what do you hear it saying to you?
Ask questions. I think I this is where my perfectionism has always showed up, is I've always felt that people who ask a lot of questions aren't self-reflective enough or aren't resourceful enough to find the answers themselves. And that's a huge handicap as far as being truly present and connected. So my inner voice is encouraging me to put that down, to let go of that because it's baggage and it's not serving me, and to really ask questions.
Oh, yes. And you know what? The amazing thing about asking questions is there are people who want to answer them and who
Absolutely.
are fulfilled by giving those answers. So I just love that.
Yes,
Well,
and it gives
Mili,
people an opportunity to share their story, Kelly, which I think you always do, is to really say, come share with me what you know. So, if you don't provide that invitation, an invitation is an ask, right?
Yeah.
Who doesn't want to be invited? So,
right. 100%. So that's another action step that we can all take is ask if you need help, ask the questions. Don't be afraid to ask for what you need. And that's good for procrastinating too.
Yes. Ask, delegate, call it what you want. Just stop doing everything alone.
Oh man, I can't wait to go apply this stuff. Mili, thank you so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate you, and I cannot wait to connect soon with you.
Thanks, Kelly. You too. Bye.
It was really good, right? Oh my gosh, that's such practical tool to just ask yourself, how long would this take my sister to do it? Or how long would this take my mom to do it? Or how long would this take my child or my husband? Oh my word, you guys, life-changing right there. That is why I do this podcast, because I feel that when I bring these guests on that are super connected, that are understanding, that are flowing in their gifts and able to use their voice, we all have takeaways that will change our life. And when we change our lives, when we change our world, we change the world, right? I mean, that's what this is about. That this is about living a visionary life. And when we are living in a state of procrastination and perfectionism, we are not living our best life, you guys. We're not able to step fully into our gifts if we're being held back like that. So I am really excited to put this tool into practice and to really start letting go of my need to create more anxiety in my life because God knows I don't need any more of that. I would love to hear what you guys think about this and if you are able to put this tool into practice, because I really feel like it's going to have a huge effect on those of you that do. And I just want to encourage you to do it, to take this gift that Mili has given us and to really use it. So just a reminder, if perfectionism is something that you struggle with, and trust me, I've been there, and as you heard, am still there sometimes. Let's work on this together. I'm going to be doing, like I said at the beginning of the show, a live version of my Overcoming Perfectionism course. I can't wait to share this with you in May. So if this is something that you are interested in, please check out the link, kellycovert.com/perfectionism, and let me know if you have any questions about it. It's really, really going to be bringing great things to the people that who take it. You're going to walk away feeling free. You're going to feel free. You're going to feel like you love yourself and you're going to feel worthy. Boom. Love it. Anyway, always let this be a reminder to you that you matter. Your gifts matter. Your words matter. Your voice matters because you are worthy.